Hey there, welcome. My name is Jessica Buchanan, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author, professional speaker, and founder of Soul Speak Press, a non traditional publishing company created for women who've been through something, now they know something, and they can teach us something. In Her Words is a podcast designed to support aspiring memoir authors on their writing and publishing journey. It's hard work, this writing and publishing stuff, and I want to empower you with encouragement and information so you can keep sharing your truth. So grab your coffee, your notebook, find a quiet space, and let's dive in. Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so happy that you are joining me for another episode of In Her Words. Today, I am joined with one of my favorite clients ever, Brenda Daly. I feel like we were working really heavily together around this time last year. So this feels very nostalgic to be hopping on a Zoom and having a conversation. Brenda Daly is a PhD and a LCSW with more than 40 years experience in clinical social work, including work with eating disorders, addiction, codependence, and alcoholic family systems. As a result of the loss of her son, Brenda has become a grief specialist with certifications in grief therapy as meaning reconstruction and art-assisted grief therapy, as well as being a grief educator. Brenda has been a speaker with many local groups on grief, as well as speaking at the Bereaved Parents of the USA National Conference, and she is here to share her writing and publishing journey with you all. Brenda, welcome to In Her Words.
Thank you for having me. I'm
It's so
excited.
good to see your face, and I love your book sits here. I look at it every day. I'm always so proud of it and your accomplishments. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and why you decided to share it?
Well, my story is my journey with the loss of my son. And he died about 6 years ago. In fact, I just passed the sixth anniversary. 11 years prior to his death, he had a traumatic brain injury. So I always say there was, like now I say 17 years of trauma.
Mm.
Um, I went through some kind of losses then, and then suddenly he died. And after that, I was lost. I was devastated. I didn't think I was ever going to function in the world again. And, I was reaching out to different resources, and I just started in this one women's support group, and somebody talked about writing a book. And this is the funniest thing. I know this is going to freak people out, but I had talked to this medium, and she said, "Oh, my son's name is Kevin. You and Kevin are going to write a book together." And I thought, this is out there. I'm not writing a book. And then I was in this women's group, and we were sort of setting some goals for ourselves. And one of the women in the group started writing a book, and I thought, well, I can write, I can write. And I just really at first started like I wanted to get the story on paper about my
Mhm.
son and everything that happened. And I say, I was doing some talks, but things were feeling like in bits and pieces.
Mhm.
And I wanted to make it whole. And it's interesting because in the end, I feel like it was, a way to make myself whole again, that I
Mhm.
was very fragmented. And what kind of initiated the writing too was I had done some work through the art assisted grief certification I was doing, and I did a collage. And I start my book with the story of that collage because that was kind of the beginning of the writing. And I had gathered these pictures. It was only a 20-minute collage. We do an experiential to learn how to do the technique. And
Mhm.
so I ripping out these pictures and just ripping out pictures that I like. And then, okay, it's time to glue them together. And I had this one picture on the collage of this woman just laying on the rocks, and it was black and white. She was devastated. And then I had put on the other side of the collage, a woman. It happened to be Jill Biden, actually, but she was in a suit and she looked professional, and I knew she had lost a child and she was functioning. And I thought, well, how did I get from that to this? And I needed a picture in the middle. So I thumbed through the pictures I pulled, and there was a picture of a woman by the rocks. This woman, the first one was laying on rocks near the beach. And this other one was in black and white, but she was standing there and she had her arm outstretched like she was letting go of something. So I put that in the middle. And then we had to share the story. And so or what these pictures meant to us. And so I said, this woman was devastated, and then she began to function again. And I said, so I picked the picture in the middle, and I thought, how did I get from devastation to functioning again. And all of a sudden I just looked at the picture and I said, I I got up and I
Mm.
started crying. It still makes me cry.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
got up.
Yeah.
People in the room, and that was room, it was on Zoom, but they were starting, crying. And I said, I just, I just got up. And that
Mm.
was a very powerful realization of my resilience through this whole traumatic journey that I'd been on. And then I was learning other things about grief and healing, and that's where I thought, I'm going to write this. I felt compelled. I felt compelled. And I did end up finding this one woman, and I worked with her, and she was a writing coach. And she
Mm-hmm.
held me accountable to so many pages every 2 weeks. I paid her. And then in the end, she said, we have to make this into story. It's just the facts. And so she helped me, and she kind of revised it and turned it around. And then she goes, well, now here it is, now it's done, and good luck. And here's someone you can talk to publish it. And I wasn't that happy with the end product.
Okay.
So it had some important things in it, but it just wasn't right for me. And it seemed like it became a lot of her words and not my words, even though I think she helped me a lot. And I happened to find you. I don't know how, I think it was Instagram. And I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to her. So I came to you, and from the beginning, you cried when I told my
I'm
story.
crying now. I can't, like, every time we would get on a call, I would end up crying because there's just something so profound about your journey. Yeah. Anyway, keep going. I'm just going to silently weep over here while you're talking.
So I knew when I saw your tears that you were hearing me and you
Mm.
were getting me, and I knew it. And so I was very drawn to, of course, working with you, and immediately started working with you. But I also love the whole mission of Soul Speak Press, that it was women. I like the idea it's all women, and women sharing their stories, because through this, and what you helped me do was bring it back into my voice, my
Mm.
story. And
Mm.
I know we took the manuscript and we revised it again back to sequencing. It was out of sequence and kind of all over. And I remember that we did that, and just like I heard another podcaster of yours saying, like we ripped it up, and we pretty much ripped it
We
up.
did.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and eliminated, you go, this is repeating, and I would think that was repeating, but you just said, hey, and it just brought down to my voice and my story. And in the end, I'm actually really, really pleased with it. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that it was well written, and
Mm.
I just really do attribute a lot of that to you. And when I would get stuck on a part, I mean, nobody comes into this writing without a team of people. That's what I've learned. You need a team. And so when I would be stuck about something, you would help me find the words. So
Mhm.
all through the process, I really enjoyed it. And I do really recommend it for women,
Mhm.
because I think there's so many women that have stories to tell of things they overcame. I guess I generally think as women, we're really strong. We tend to be the survivors and holding our families together, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a lot of women that have stories that we need to hear. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
loved working with you and Soul Speak Press. I can't say enough about it, and very pleased with how my book came about. And I have to say, in the beginning, it was just something for me. I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to publish a book. I just was just compelled to keep putting that story together.
Yeah.
And in the story, I talk about, and you see on the cover, the Kintsugi bowl, and
Mhm.
I relate it to how in the beginning I was so fractured, like I fell apart like a bowl, like a china bowl you break on the ground, and then I started gluing those pieces together, and I actually did a Kintsugi bowl from a Etsy person, and
Uh-huh.
because I wanted to feel that experience. Well, because I related to it so much, and I took the pieces and I would glue the big pieces together of this bowl I shattered, and they'd come apart, and I'd do it again, and I was like, that's my story. Like I
Mhm.
get the bigger pieces of my grief together and put them together. And then I realized I had to be patient and I had to hold them in place till the glue set. And I had to do it a few times. And that was so much my journey. And then in the end, I had a bowl that I had made, but there was a hole in it because some of the bowl had turned to dust. Now, a great kintsugi master could probably do something with that, but I did not, I couldn't put the dust in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up just going, wow, I really like that hole because there is a hole in my life. There is a grief, there is a loss that isn't fixable. And so the whole story of the Kintsugi bowl on the cover, it just
Yeah.
it became my story. And so
And I
I'm
love,
what
like, I love, because I'm looking at the book that we're going to tell everybody to go out and buy, but I love that within the Kintsugi, there are pictures of you and Kevin, and there are pictures of the ocean in this path, and that are very symbolic of your journey. And I just think that, I think what you said earlier about how you felt so fragmented at the beginning of this experience, and how sitting down and writing about your trauma, writing through your trauma brought you to a place of wholeness, which I think is really incredible, first of all, that you can say that. And also, look, like, reframing it in terms of, like, there's always going to be a hole in my heart and in my life, right? Because Kevin's not with you anymore. And you've reframed what wholeness looks like.
yeah.
But also, I'm a huge believer in the healing power of writing,
Oh
and
yeah.
it has healed me so profoundly from it, and helped me navigate through my trauma and my healing journey. And you touched on that, but could you, like, I don't know, could you expound upon that a little bit more?
Well, I'm telling you, people noticed a huge change in me as well when I finished writing. And it wasn't just that, oh, yay, I finished writing. It was that whole therapeutic process of looking at it. And it just, it's like I kept bringing it out in front of me, the story of the loss, the story of the healing. And I kept having to, revise it and look at it and revise it. And to me, that's a lot of what made me whole is instead of going away, oh, I don't want to deal with this grief, or, I'm going to put that over there and I'm going to live my life. I kept coming into it. You say leaning in therapy, we say experience near. I went towards the pain and I went towards the story. And that's what helped me. And I do so totally agree with writing as healing because, and especially in grief, you don't have a way to put your words sometimes together. And when you just keep writing about it, it gets that out in front of you in black and white. And then you can process it, you can spend time with it. It's not like, okay, here we're going to get over grief and you're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like you're immersed in it. You're like looking at it. And not that everybody's going to write to be immersed in their grief, but that is just how the writing became therapeutic for me, and then to be service to others. I mean, I think that what's really powerful about my book now is I've had so many people come up to me, and there will be some part of the book that wasn't the biggest deal to me, and they'll say, oh, I really related to this, and somebody else comes up and they're crying, this meant so much to me. And it surprises me, but it's what I wanted my story to be something people resonated with and got something from that helped them in their own life. It's not just the story of, my horrific loss and the years I went through with the traumatic brain injury. It's the story of how I learned to live in the both and I learned to get up. I learned to be of service to other people who were suffering and how healing that can be.
Yeah.
I always say this about the grief journey that I was drowning and someone took my hand and was pulling me out of the sea of grief, and I reached behind me and grabbed the next person, and that is what that whole healing process becomes, and so I think that's what the writing did for me and what the story does. And I think some of my favorite part of this whole journey is like right now when I'm around people and they walk up to me, some situation I'm in, or email me and say, this really helped me, this part. I was really changed by this. I started doing this because of what you said here.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, that is the goal. Like
Right.
again, and it brings up so much emotion in me because not just because I feel very connected to you, having gotten to know you and working through this manuscript with you, but also like, yes, we have lots of goals here at Soul Speak Press, but at the end of the day, like it's about empowering women and making them feel seen and supporting them as they tell their story, but it's also an act of service. And because we believe that those who are healing, out in the open are doing so that someone in can heal privately too, who doesn't feel like they can step out into the light. Like those are huge, huge mantras for us. Those are the pillars upon which we continue to build and work. And to hear that that is what is happening, and that your book is causing ripples, and it's an extension, it's right, it's another hand that people can hold on to. And I remember specifically like being like that, making such an impression on me. At one part in your manuscript, you talk about, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get the details right. I feel like you were in a grief group
Mhm.
and somebody shared their story. They'd lost perhaps a child, and they shared their story, and it had been, quite a number of years, but you came away from that experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you saw that they were sitting there and they were functioning, and that gave you some hope that
Oh, yeah.
perhaps what you were going through in the loss of Kevin, it was perhaps survivable, and that there was life on the other side.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was within weeks after Kevin had died. I met this woman through the Bereaved Parents of the USA, and she so kindly met me for lunch. And I was like walking with nothing. I was a shell of myself, and I remember it was gray outside, and it was matching how I felt inside of myself. And I looked across from her, and she was showing me, "Oh, here's a picture of my son." And I saw one, she was willing to meet with me, which I so desperately needed someone to hold my hand, to guide me, and to be hope, to be a beacon of hope. And she really was that for me, because I looked at her and I was like, she's smiling, she's breathing, she's surviving. There is some way through this. And I really needed someone to show me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
I hope
gosh.
my book is that for somebody,
I,
that beacon of hope. Yeah.
yes. I have no doubt that it is. I have no doubt that it is. And I feel very strongly compelled to show people that you can be a successful person of sound mind after significant trauma, you
Yes.
know? But you're right. What did you call it? Existing near, no, experiencing near.
Yeah, to go experience near, to go towards it, instead of like when you're doing therapy, you got to go experience near. You have to be near that experience, near that emotion instead of stepping back. And
Right.
so that's what I think that the whole writing process for me was personally.
Yeah.
I
It's
do
so, go ahead.
I just also want to say that in terms of writing the book, I never went around speaking anywhere. And I just again, I was enabled by the writing to have a frame for my story, and that allows me to speak. And what I've seen is my lived experience is powerful for other people.
Mhm.
It is a really big thing to have this lived experience. It's better, there'll be experts that get up and talk about grief, and it's like, wait a minute, my lived experience is
Yes.
more profound than that research project
Yes.
on grief.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
A
that's
hundred
what,
million times. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, I'm sure it's well received, feels like a weird way to say it, but I'm sure it's, people connect with it so much more than they do the research.
yes, absolutely. Because they come up and they say, that's how I felt. That's what happened to me. I do a talk on resilience and grief, and mothers come up to me, and it's like been a dirty word in grief but it's not. And it's just a different perception of what resilience is. But they'll come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that because I need to know there's resilience. So that's what I'm hoping my story is about too, is that there is resilience, there is hope. Like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit then about the publishing process and what that was like for you, and then what things have been like post launch and what you've been up to. And it sounds like people, have received the book and that they're letting you know that they've connected with different parts of it. But let's just talk a little bit about that.
well, you all made the publishing process so easy that I'm like, hey, I mean, I had you editing it. I had it, I had other people
Oh,
editing it.
Ilsa, yeah. Yep.
There's more eyes on it. And, all I had to do was just keep turning in the pages and the revisions. And when it was ready, I got the sort of the draft book, I guess you would call it. And, we went through it again.
Yeah.
And then it was published. And I felt it was so easily done. If you're trying to do it on your own, you got to get it your own copy editor, or you got to do this or that, or you got to, pound the pavement to get publishers to look at it. And it was so easy to go through Soul Speak Press. It made it easy for me, and I love that part of it. Writing is one thing, dealing with all that stuff is
Yeah.
another. So I was
That is very true. That's a good point. I think a lot of people think once the book is finished, once the manuscript's finished and it's submitted to the publisher, then it's smooth sailing, right? Then your job is done, but it's not, because then you have to, yes, like you said, we go through several rounds of revisions. I mean, I'm always so proud of the final product for our clients because, I mean, they're perfect. If not 100% perfect, they're like 99.9% perfect because we go through them with a fine tooth comb several times to make sure we catch everything. And then you launch and you go through your book launch team and the strategy, and everybody's praying and crossing fingers that you hit the bestseller list, which we've never not had happen. But then comes the hard part. Then it's what? Then what do you do with it, right? Then you got to either start selling it, you got to start marketing it, you got to get on social media. Like, what's that been like for you?
Well, actually, you sent me to Natalie Hancock and Genevieve Bryan, and they are a phenomenal team. I never thought I would even say, okay, I'll pay for this, but they are well worth every penny, and they're so creative, and they worked with me, and the things they come up with, it's made it easy. And one of the things about this is you don't write a book in isolation. I have people come up to me and say, oh, I want to write a book, and it's like, get support, get a team. You need a team. And, that's what I had. And it's been really an interesting process. I would never have known how to do this stuff, this social media stuff. I'm a little bit old for some of that stuff. So
I
it's
feel like I
really
don't know
nice.
how to do it.
Yeah. And the creativity, and sometimes they will give me an idea for how to say something just because they have that mindset. And so that's been really, really helpful. The book, I've gotten a lot of opportunities to speak because of it. And I've applied or I guess you apply to speak at different conferences. I used to speak at the bereaved parents one. I'm hoping they let me do a keynote. And I used to think, who am I to do a keynote? I can't do a keynote, but writing the book makes me feel like, again, my lived experience, it's powerful. I have something to say.
Yes. Well, and that's what we always say is that a book is your number one credibility builder. It's the keys to the kingdom. Like it's
Yeah,
your calling card.
it's your calling card. Yeah.
People will read this before they hire you. They'll love it. I'm telling you, as someone who's spent the last 12 years speaking as a profession, it's because of this book right here and all the other books I've written. It's the best way if that's something you aspire to, or you're coaching, or you're trying to build a workshop reputation. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how anybody does it without a book and a website.
Yeah. I don't.
Those are like fundamentals to me. So the speaking's been going well.
Yes, I have. I'm sure I'll get to do some speaking engagements at bereaved parents conferences,
Mhm.
but locally, I've been asked to do two uh, grieving through the holidays workshops.
Oh,
I,
wonderful.
I that helps me. So
Yes.
to do it, and I, put together a PowerPoint, but that's where I also bring in my book and
Hmm.
sell it and or send them to Amazon or whatever, wherever they can find it. And yes,
Yeah.
I get a lot of local like talks for grief
Uh-huh.
group, but it's kind of spread by word of mouth. It's really interesting, because my friends told this friend, and I was in this sort of women's group for a while. I was done with it, but someone that I didn't even know read it and started telling other people to read it. And, I mean, you do have to get your face out there and you do have to
Yeah.
let people know about it. And
Yeah.
I know I remember talking to you and I thought, well, once it's published, that's it. And you kind of said, no, no, that's not it. Now the work begins, so to speak. I mean, the book, and I'm like,
Surprise.
I gotta sell it. Yeah, but it's easy to sell it when you have a story to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brenda, you're the model author. So
Oh,
we are so
thank
appreciative.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say somebody's listening to this and they want to read I Got Up, A Mother's Story of Grief, Resilience, and Unending Love. Where can they go?
So they can go to brendadaly.com.
Hmm.
They can find me at Brenda Daly Author. And they can even email me at hello@brendadaly.com. Yeah,
Awesome. And
my
the
website is the best
and
place probably.
okay, and then it's available on Amazon and all the other
Yeah.
places. I
Yeah.
mean,
And yeah,
but
it's available on Amazon. If you go to brendadaly.com, there's a link straight to the book at Amazon. But of course, you can go to Amazon and just type in I Got Up and Brenda Daly and it pulls right up. And yeah, so I'm so proud of the book. And I'm very grateful for the work that we did together. I mean, and I loved your story too. And I think that, when I first met you, then I immediately got your book and read your story. And so I also knew from that, I'm like, she knows pain and she knows trauma. And so this is going to be good. And it was everything and more. It was more than I expected it to be, truly. I'm so far beyond what I expected when I started writing the book. I'm so far beyond helping people. That was my goal.
yeah,
Beginning,
that's
yeah.
amazing. It just makes me feel, oh, it's just everything. I have one last question.
Hmm.
And this is a tearjerker. Um, what do you think Kevin would say?
I really feel him with me now, and I think he would say, "Great job, Mom. Thanks for keeping my memory alive and thanks for helping other people." My son was very generous and very much about service too. So I think I feel him with me. And every time I talk, I show his picture and I say everything I do is in memory of him in terms of the grief stuff. Every talk I do, the book I wrote, everything is for him. And there's that saying that as long as you talk about someone, you keep them alive. He is alive to me in the moments when I'm talking about the book or passing the book on or doing any kind of a talk. And so I think and I know that he's very proud of me. Yeah, we did it together, him and me, just
Yeah.
like that medium said.
Hey, I am all about the mediums, let me tell you. So
Oh, people aren't, but you have to be careful.
most of the people that come to Soul Speak Press are. So we're all in good company. Brenda, thank you so much. Thank you for trusting us to help you tell your story. And thank you for continuing to share Kevin's legacy and his memory with the world and for just working so hard in service of others. You are an exact example of turning horror into contribution, and you're so inspiring. And I'm just really grateful to have gotten to work with you and to know you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same. And thank you for giving me my voice in the story. I really feel you did that, Jess.
Mm.
Thanks.
You
Thank
did the hard work.
you. Thank you.
In Her Words is hosted by me, Jessica Buchanan, and is produced by Soul Speak Press, a non-traditional publishing house for women who are ready to tell their story. If you would like to know more about our submission process, I encourage you to check us out at www.soulspeakpress.com or follow us over on Instagram at soulspeakpress. We appreciate all your questions, and if you would like to leave us a review, we would be so grateful.